Welcome to Quantum RX, the podcast that teaches you how to move beyond stuck emotions and trauma for mind, body, and spirit healing. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Davis. Do you ever roll your eyes hearing about the latest diet and lifestyle trends, all of the challenges, the fads? I hear this frequently from the people I work with because they are inundated with all of this information. And not only is it just an overwhelm of information, but it's like just adds another layer of confusion and complexity to the whole healing journey. You know, they'll be like, well, should I try this diet? Should I try carnivore? Should I try, paleo? Should I try keto? All of the things. And then you've got all of the challenges, right? Like 75 hard, and I think that's what it's called. But all of those things, right? Those different challenges, and it becomes a lot of noise in the background, and it can be very confusing. And so I actually had a client the other day who said then, following that question, she was like, does emotional and quantum healing or anything in that realm mean that we ignore diet and lifestyle? Because truthfully, she was honest and said that she would rather just focus on that and not have to focus on her diet and lifestyle. And what I'll say is the short answer is no. Emotional emotional trauma healing, quantum healing does not mean ignoring diet and lifestyle. That actually couldn't be further from the truth, because in reality, they are intimately connected and should not be viewed as separate. So in this episode, we're going to cover 3 super simple points that really describe how all of it is interrelated and why you don't want to be ignoring, diet, lifestyle, or your physical body for the sake of, just being at we'll say higher vibe state, even though that's a phrase that I don't really love, but really it is being at a higher vibrational state. We'll break that down and get into the nuances of it. But the main points I want you to take away today are: your body is a temple and should be treated that way, but it will look different at different times in your life and on your healing journey. Energy and vibration matter, not just, the energy that we hold personally, but the energy of our environment. And the last point, which is the most important, is your way is the right way. Listen to your body, its cues, and your intuition. If you're curious as to if you have any stored emotions or trauma that might be causing your illness, preventing you from achieving your highest goals, or even just showing up as the best, most authentic version of yourself, I invite you to take my free Stored Emotions and Trauma quiz, and you will find that link in the show notes. So let's get back and dive right into, is there a separation between emotional healing, this quantum healing, and diet and lifestyle? And I will say, no, there is not, and there shouldn't be. And as I mentioned earlier, your body truly is a temple and should be treated that way. And it will look different, depending upon where you are in your life and your healing journey. But before we unpack that, I want to point out one really important point. And I feel like this point is brought up quite a bit in today's world. Everyone's like, show me the science, show me the science, show me the science. And other people are like, no, it's all about, God, my religion, my spirituality. There really isn't a separation of those. That narrative has been created over, roughly the last, not even 200 years, but about 150 years. It's that narrative has been, put out there and maintained, because it was around the last third of the 19th century or the 1800s that there was an intentional separation of science, religion, and spirituality. But really, if you look back in history, it started well before that. You can look back in history and see where, when the powers that be saw that there was wholeness and completeness, and I would say empowerment and autonomy in holding all of those together, they did not like that. So they found ways to put out messages that would separate those. And this has been going back, centuries, and I would say even millennia. If you look back deeply into the history, and that's not something I'm going to get into deeply today, I should say, because that is a topic in and of itself. But it is notable that the, whoever it was of the day of the time period, they realized that if people weren't embodying this wholeness or this, oneness of their, we'll say science, spirituality, religion, all of that, they realized that they could have more control over people when they separated those, and they could create discord, and it creates us versus them. And so I just wanted to start off with pointing that out, because I think that's a really, really important piece of the puzzle. All of this is interrelated. And so I wanted to, make sure that you all understand that, because when it comes down to it, right, our bodies really are that temple, right? It houses all of us. We are a physical being, we're a mental and emotional being, and we're also spiritual beings. And that is why I do the work that I do, because I view it all as one and all as interrelated. And it should never be separated, because when you get into those separatist ideas out in the external world, but especially within our bodies, that's when you start to have issues. So that's a perfect segue to move us into that, the idea of, treating your body really well and it looking different at different times in your life, right? Let's start off when you're younger. When you're younger, you're going to be very focused on typically your physical being. There are some people who are really kind of dialed in on that spiritual, emotional level when they're young, but that's not most of us. Most of us are physical beings when we're young. We're very focused on the physical, and that's absolutely fine. But it's like during the healing process, when I'm working with people, most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time, some of the time they are focused on the physical, because when you are in pain or you are feeling a certain way, like anxious or depressed or angry, all of those things, you're going to be focused on that, right? You're going to be focused on that, and you really can't get beyond anything else to realize that there's potential for healing in other spaces. But once you release whatever it is that needs to be released emotionally, or you relieve those physical symptoms, it allows you the space to realize, oh, wow, maybe there are other ways to heal, and maybe there are higher connections that I can make. And so I work with people, I meet them where they're at. And the diet and lifestyle piece is really interesting, because in my mind, I view that as the foundation. That is foundational to being able to easily access emotional harmony, trauma release, and also higher levels of spirituality, right? And so regarding, diet and lifestyle, it is really, really basic, right? The diet, I tell people, I'm like, whatever works best for you. Most people generally, and this is my 20 years of, functional medicine experience speaking, most people do not do well on extreme diets for a long period of time. That said, I have a very, 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 very small percentage of people who do that, and they do well. So, again, the best diet is what works well for you, and it might change. And I would say it will change throughout your life, because we tend to have a higher tolerance for, we'll call them dietary issues, or, you might have a little bit more resilience if you decide to eat stuff that's not so great, right? A lot of processed food, or things of that nature versus eating more whole foods based. That is what I tell people. I'm like, eat more whole foods. The distribution of what that looks like might look different depending upon your physiology and your body type and your gut's microbiome, right? Some people might not handle a higher fat diet very well, but they do great with carbs and protein. That's great because guess what? Carbs are important and they matter and they give us energy, and they've been vilified in the last, especially 10 years, but I would say 15, 20 years, even, yeah, that has been the case for that period of time. Some people do better on, a higher fat diet and lower carbs and lower protein, and that's okay, but they're getting the whole array of, macronutrients. Same with protein. It all just kind of depends on you. This is something that I personally have played around with in my life, and I actually do better with more carbs and protein and less fat. I've realized, like, especially as I'm moving into like that menopause space, right? It's funny because so often women now are told, in menopause, you can't have carbs. I do very well with the carbs. It's the fat that gets me kind of stuck and not feeling great. But I do need to have some fat because fat's super important, right? It's important for hormones. It's important for brain function. It's important for energy. There's a lot of reasons why fat is important too. So what I'm trying to say here is just do what works for you. I will use more extreme versions of diet for short-term changes, right? Sometimes if a person wants to do carnivore, I'm not opposed to it. If they want to do keto or animal-based for a short term, maybe a month or two, I'm not opposed to it. Sometimes we just need a reset. I've done those resets. Recently, I did one that was the sugar fast, and it was basically largely living off of fruit for most of the week and then having certain meals with protein and starches, every like 2 to 3 days. And that actually was a really great reset for me. My body needed a little bit of a jolt, and I did that, but it's not something I'm going to do long term. So I wanted to really drive that home. And the same goes for lifestyle, the basics, eat whole foods, get out in the sun, get out in nature. There is so much benefit to that. Again, we're not going to dive into the nuance of it right now because again, that could be a topic in and of itself, but so much importance to that. More than anything, move your body. The people who I see in my practice that are in their 70s and are doing well are the people who have moved their whole lives. And I will say that's independent of diet. Some of them didn't even have the best diet, but they're still doing really well. Some of them, there's a handful of them that are on no medications in their 70s, mid to late 70s. And that's saying something in this day and age where everybody's on something, usually multiple things. So, and I shouldn't say everybody, that I'm kind of making a generalization, and that does not necessarily apply to everybody. There is a percentage of people who are not, but those are precious few in this day and age, right? And so moving your body is so important, right? Getting sleep, having good hydration. And that means like mineral repleted water, not just water, making sure that your cells are functioning well, moderating your stress levels, and just your life. Those are all basic fundamental things that we need to do, right? And that provides the foundation. That foundation is really important. And so when this person had asked me the question, I'm like, no, we can't ignore this stuff. At certain times in your life, you will be focused on different things. Like right now, I'm not super duper focused on my diet and my lifestyle, but a month or two ago, I was a little bit more focused. I did that reset with that sugar fast. And it was interesting because we had recently also kind of dialed in my, bioidentical hormones because I was struggling a little bit, and all of that, again, that would be more physically oriented, and it made a massive shift. And that allowed me to exercise harder, like lift weights harder, move my body more frequently during the day because I just had more energy. And it was pretty awesome. And so then I was a little bit more focused on my physical body, but that didn't mean I was neglecting the emotional, mental, and spiritual side. I always have all of these, in my integrated, daily life. But some of the factors are going to be more dominant than others at times, or where my focus and my intention might be. Like more recently, in the past several weeks, it's kind of come back to that emotional, spiritual side, the, mental, emotional, spiritual. Because that's, once I was feeling really good, that's where my focus and my intuition led me to. And interestingly, I'm going to be unpacking that in some episodes coming very soon. So I'm excited for that because it's kind of the next layer or evolution of, just moving through the emotions and moving through the trauma. But the great thing is once you've done so much of the deep work and the hard work, it's not as difficult when you are moving through new layers. So I just wanted to give you guys that little glimpse. So I really wanted to highlight that, some of the people that I work with, like they'll come to me, they're not even in that physical realm of being focused. They're like, I've got my diet dialed in, my body feels good. I need to address this mental, like some mental stuff going on, some emotional stuff going on. A lot of times it is releasing, stored emotions, traumatic experiences, wanting to just improve where they are at, improve that vibrational level and that level of just healing. And some people will also say, like, I feel like there's something missing. I used to feel like I was connected to God, or I was connected to the universe, or I was connected to something higher power, right? Something bigger than myself. And they feel like there's a disconnect and there's a block there. And so they want to move through that. Some people want to do generational healing too, or ancestral healing. And that's important too. So there's different reasons we do this stuff and different focuses at different time. And it oscillates, right? We're never without any of them, but some of them are going to be more in focus, under that lens than others at certain times. And that's great. Another point I wanted to bring up, this is point number 2 that's really important. It is energy and vibration matter, right? We talk about that all the time because that is the essence of what we would call quantum healing, but healing in general, right? Not just the energy we're holding in our mental state, right? Checking in with yourself, I should say. Checking in with yourself. Where are you today? Are you feeling content? Are you peaceful? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you anxious? Like, what is your general vibrational state, right? What are your thoughts? Your thoughts really significantly contribute to that vibrational state. And then to layer on top of that, you've got environment, right? You've got the people you surround yourself with physically in your physical space. And you also have the people that are, in your realm, that are taking up your time, taking up your attention, taking up your focus, right? You've got all of that matters too, even if they're not in your physical proximity, right? And also their thoughts and feelings, because that can resonate with you as well and bring you down, bringing you to a place where you might not want to be. And that's something to check in on yourself with and really really have an honest conversation with yourself. Is this something that you need, or someone that you need in your life? Or is it something that can be changed? Or is it something that you need to release, right? The food, food, especially, all food has vibrational energy. Everything on the earth, in our universe, all of it has vibrational energy. But the food you consume impacts your whole body, right? And it, fruits and vegetables and living high quality foods are going to have a good vibrational energy versus processed foods, right? Or, foods that have been altered in many ways. So that's an important way to look at this too, and how it's all interconnected. I'm not going to get into the science of the breakdown, right? But your body's going to take that food. It's going to feel the vibrational energy. It's also going to break down those foods into its, micronutrients, all of the individual components, and distribute it to your body where your body needs it, right? I just heard what I said, and I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying. Your body isn't going to be like, oh, her spleen is struggling today. And so we're going to send all the nutrients there. But as your nervous system is scanning and perceives any kind of stresses, it will distribute hormones, resources, nutrients into certain pathways so that it can help balance things out. That is what your body is always looking to do. It's always looking for balance or homeostasis, right? It's always, like we've talked about before, looking for, on its most basic level, your nervous system in your body is always looking for danger versus safety. You're going to hear me say this time and again. And if it perceives something to be not positive, right? Not good, dangerous, quote unquote, dangerous, because that is a perception, it's going to react, right? And so the more we can get ourselves focused in on the safety, the better off we're going to be and the healthier we're going to be. And I'm going to give you a little aside here. Sometimes when I'm working with people and they don't want to go down the path of all the crazy, the testing and the eliminating of their diet, they're like, I know I react to this food, right? There's another pathway. There's another opportunity. I had somebody who it was kiwi. And so we can do a desensitization and resensitization process that is much more in the energetic realm than anything. We're not doing eliminations. We're not doing supplements for it. We are doing things purely in the emotional, mental, and energetic realms. But it is, basically getting that person to develop a tolerance for that food again, and then realize it's not dangerous. Getting your body and your brain to realize things are not dangerous. That is incredibly powerful. And so this is, again, why everything is aligned and everything is connected. We don't separate things out. That is why I say I practice, kind of a very holistic form of healing. It truly is holistic. It's not holistic in the sense that it's alternative or it's not conventional. It's holistic in the sense that we are addressing you as a whole being, not separating you out into, systems or parts or your, I always think of like the invisible line here, right? That separates your mind and your brain from your body and your whole spirit, right? So that's a really, really important piece of the puzzle. One other thing that I wanted to mention on the energy and vibration is spaces matter too. The energy of like even just your house, where your house is located, where your office is located, moving out in the world. We are subject and affected by the energy of people, places, and things. Sounds like we're in elementary school, learning what nouns are, people, places, things, right? And so we are affected by all of that. And what I wanted to like highlight for you is kind of like an example of me in certain environments. So I think some of you know that I grew up in Florida. And for those of you who live in Florida or love Florida, that's great. That's good on you. I personally don't like it. I don't like the energy of Florida. I don't like, and this is, I will also say, particularly South Florida. There are some places I've been on the West Coast. So I should say Southeast Florida. There are some places I've been on the West Coast that I really like, and some places in Northern Florida that I really like. But in general, Florida is not my jam. It is not my vibe. Even as a child, I didn't really love it. And when I was a teen, it became more apparent. And I was like, for college, eventually I was like, oh, it's my opportunity to get out of here, because they're in just the energy of the place. It's transient. It's got a transient energy, because growing up there were a lot of people who would come down there for the winters, right? A lot of people from the Northeast and Canada go down there for the winters. That added to the transient nature. A lot of people, just like here in Colorado, people are like, oh, it's an awesome place to live. So a lot of people move in, but a lot of people move out too. So it's kind of got that vibe to it. I also feel like you're a beach person or a mountain person. And I like the beach. Don't get me wrong. Like I lived at the beach when I was younger. But when I came out here and saw the mountains for the first time when I was a freshman in college, it was transformative for me. It was just like, this is it. This is my home. And I knew that I wanted to be here again. And so I made it happen. Eventually I made it happen. So I just vibrated better here. Like there was something here that drew me to the mountains. And to this day, I love being in the mountains. I love especially the forested areas with streams and rivers and hearing the running water and just all of the things there. Like that is my happy place, and that feels at home to me. Even people I know who aren't very kind of like energetic people, they'll say like when they get off the airplane and they're like hanging out in South Florida for like the first time, they're kind of like, this feels a little different. And it does. I would say people who are very sensitive energetically can pick up on that, and in other places too. It's not just to say that that's unique to South Florida. I notice it a lot there because that's where I grew up. And when I visit home again, like my nervous system tunes into that. But I've also felt it in other places. I have felt it in California in certain areas, especially Southern California. I'm trying to think, another kind of just counterpoint to that is I was at back in April when I was at one of the conferences that I went to. We got off the airplane and it was in Oklahoma. I landed in Tulsa, and it was crazy to me because it just felt so calm versus being here in Colorado or other places I've lived. Most of the places I've lived have been just more metro places, right? I've lived in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, lots of people, lots of density. There was not. There was a calmness. There was a calmness in the airport. There was a calmness after my Uber driver got me and dropped me off at the hotel. It was just quiet and peaceful. And my body just zeroed in on that and really, really appreciated it. But I will say, there's a lot of, Oklahoma's also in, kind of like that tornado alley. And there were some storms around when we were there, and you can feel that too. So it's really interesting, kind of all of the things that come in when we are in tuned and we are aware, right? When we have that awareness and that alignment to notice these things. And so that's why I wanted to point out that the energy and the vibration matter. And just to recap, your own personal energy, the energy of your environment, which encompasses people and spaces and places and food, thoughts of your own thoughts, other people's thoughts. There's lots of things that, really interact like simultaneously to bring about kind of your own energetic state. And that matters. And that's, again, another reason why we can't separate, we'll say, diet and lifestyle from emotional and trauma and quantum healing, right? It's all interconnected. And really, we're just talking about healing. We're not talking about them as separate entities. And the last piece of the puzzle I wanted to leave you guys with was, there's no right way. Your way is the right way. Period. That is it. Your way is the right way. You just have to listen to your body's cues and your intuition. Our body gives us feedback constantly, but most of us are just going through the grind of daily life and not listening to it, until that whisper from your body becomes a scream, right? Like all of a sudden you're going about your day and you're like, oh, I don't feel so good. I just have this massive headache, or I have this pain in my low back that I can't get rid of. And it starts to prevent you from doing the things that you want to in life, or else those symptoms are so debilitating that, you can't ignore them. And it's not just preventing you from doing the things you want to do in life, but it's preventing you from showing up at all, right? I know I've been there, and I know a lot of the people that I work with have been to that point too, right? And so listen to your body, go after whatever it is. If it's pain or if it is like a symptom like headache, yeah, you're probably going to want to be focusing on the physical, at least in the short term. Eventually, I would say it's a good idea to kind of transition that to the emotional and the emotional, traumatic, and spiritual from the standpoint of, when my quiz, that's the reason, one of the main reasons I developed that stored emotions and trauma quiz was for this very reason, to show people how it's all connected. When you see all of those questions and they're kind of laid out between like the physical body, the physical body in the musculoskeletal area, the biochemical part of your body, and then the emotional, traumatic, spiritual, and also relational, how you show up with relationships with people. All of that is connected. And I can show people how it's all related. And then they get it and they're like, ah. And so I always let people guide that journey, right? They guide where we start. What is the biggest thing right now that we need to address for you to feel better and for you to move on and for you to like continue, your healing journey. And so that is why I developed that, because one of the things that I think is the most important to do is to listen to your body and listen to your intuition, because the more you clear out the noise of symptoms, of pain, of anxiety, of the background just static, the more you are able to tune into those cues and tune into your intuition. And so I wanted to make sure that you really understand that your way is the right way. Don't listen to the noise out there. Try as much as you can. I mean, I see it too, but I intentionally avoid a lot of it. I feel like I'm in also a space where I can see it and I can assess, hey, is this something I want to look into? Like that Sugar Fest I had mentioned earlier. That was something that at first I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then the more I dove into it, the more I looked at the science, I was like, there might be something here. Am I advocating for people to do it all the time? Absolutely not. But is it something you could use as a reset in the short term? Maybe to get your insulin sensitivity and your, blood sugar signaling a little more tuned in, especially if you have been low carb or low sugar for a long time. Sure, that might work, but it might not, right? There's always that possibility. But I have seen it work for myself and a lot of other people more recently. So I'm just saying, like, leave your mind open to options and don't get focused in on one thing, because when we get so focused in on one thing is when we tend to kind of stray from the path and make things more difficult for ourselves than we really need to. Anyhow, until next time, sending you all lots of love, and just remember that you are enough. You are perfect. You are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. It's just, tuning into yourself and getting back to the essence of who you truly are.
If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Remember, knowledge is just the beginning. Taking action is what truly sparks change. If you're overwhelmed and don't have enough energy to make it through the day, I invite you to book a free 20-minute coaching call with me. It's a no-obligation chat where we can discuss your health goals and how I might be able to help you achieve them. Visit the link in the episode description to book that call. Until next time, keep striving for wellness, and remember, you have the power to not just survive, but thrive in motherhood.